Alrighty, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names and kicking candy ass. Live in living color here on YouTube. And today I've got a fun show in store for y'all. I've been wanting to talk about this particular filmmaker and his films for quite some time now. And to the filmmaker in discussion that I'm going to be talking about today is none other than Mr. Lucky Mckee, Mr. Master of Horror himself. And we're going to be talking about three Lucky Mckee films today. Of course, first one up is going to be May. We also got The Woods, and then the other one is going to be The Woman, which I actually don't have. I'll tell you guys why, because it's actually out of print. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So yeah, I figured I'd just get right into it today. I started a little later than I usually do, but I was just like, what, the show must go on. I've been watching these movies, prepping for the show, and yeah, without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. So for those of you guys who don't know, Lucky McKee is actually a really, really cool horror filmmaker, and he got his start in the early 2000s making a short film called All Cheerleaders Die, a film that he'd actually go on to remake in like 2013, I believe. And he made that with his good buddy Chris Stevenson, and that's like a cool little horror short. If you've never seen that, I highly recommend. But where Lucky McKee, I can actually give a little bit of background as to how I got introduced to Lucky McKee's films. It actually is through his lead actress of his first film, and that is Miss Angela Bettis of May. Um, when I was a kid, I remember going to the video stores a lot, and you're talking circa probably like early 2002. That's like the number one time I can remember going to video stores, and that's really where I started to rent horror movies. And the reason I started to rent horror movies was because of this poster that they had in the window for the TV movie version of Carrie, starring, of course, Angela Bettis. And I remember seeing that poster, and for some reason, I don't know why, but that poster was always really instrumental for me and me getting into the genre as much as I did. I remember seeing that poster as a kid, just being like, "What kind of a movie is that, man? This pretty girl in a dress covered in blood." I was like, "That's got to be freaking crazy, man." So I remember renting that, adoring it, loving it, thought Angela Bettis was great. And I was like, man, what other stuff has Angela Bettis done? And, walking up and down the horror rental aisle, which is something I did as a kid literally weekly. I would just love to look and explore and, you know, pick out which movies were right for me, which movies were wrong for me. A lot of that was based on the covers, the cover art of these movies. And cover art that caught my eye. And then when I realized it was Angela Bettis, was a little film called May from 2002. And this is like I said this on a earlier show, and I did gave like a spoiler free review on it. So if you ever want to check out my spoiler free review, I believe episode 5, I briefly give a spoiler free review of May, and that was that was a fun show as well. But today I'm going to go really, really in depth. But this is one of those movies where if somebody asks me why do you love horror so much, what is it that, name a movie that attracts you to the genre. This is one of those movies that I'd name, among the top of the list. Is it one of my favorite horror movies of all time? It's definitely up there. It's a great horror movie. But I think it's one of those ones where I look at it and I go, that's why I love the genre. It's really one of those movies for me, one of those movies that, like, I tested the waters with as a child, and I was just like, I belong here. I definitely belong in the horror community. I like watching horror movies, and this is one of those movies that's very instrumental in that. And so is Miss Angela Bettis, who, Carrie, and this performance in May, I really kind of slowly but surely fell in love with the genre because of those two performances. So without further ado, I'm going to get a little bit into the plot of this one, my thoughts on this one, stuff like that. So, May basically tells the story of Angela Bettis, who plays the title character, May, of course. And the film opens up where May is a child, and we learn that May actually has a really bad, lazy eye, and it almost makes her look partially cross eyed. And, this is really bad. I mean, the kids at school are making fun of her, and her parents, it's getting so bad to the point where the parents just give her an eye patch. They're like, listen, you're going to have to wear this eye patch. Like, there's no other choice. You're kind of, they're making fun of you and stuff. And May goes to school, and even with the eye patch, they're calling her a pirate and stuff like that. And one day, it's May's birthday, and the mother and father actually buy her a doll, and it's in a glass case. And she says, well, it's actually not bought, it's actually made by the mother. And she says, listen, I made this for you. I know you don't have any friends, so I figured I'd make you one. And just it's a very heartbreaking opening to a film. Like right off the bat, you really do feel sympathetic for this girl because she had a condition she couldn't control, man. Like she had a lazy eye. Like that's no laughing matter. That's actually really a tragic matter. And I think it's a good way for us to bam right off the bat. We're behind our lead protagonist. We're totally behind May, and you really you feel for her. And man, like there's something about that doll that she gives her. It's just so damn creepy, man. I can't explain why it's so creepy, but it really is. And uh the film goes on, and we see May in her everyday life, and she's very awkward, stuff like that, until one day the doctor actually gives her this sort of contact that makes her eye look normal. And all of a sudden people start noticing May at work, around town, stuff like that. They're just like, this girl's cute, and May is actually really obsessed with Jeremy Sisto's character in this film. The character's name's Adam, and she's obsessed with him. She thinks he's like, her dream guy. And she loves specifically his hands. She just goes, what I wouldn't give to have his hands brush over my face and brush over my hair, and, all this stuff. And, you really early on, like 10 minutes in, you are so enthralled and connected with this character. You're really cheering for her. You're just like, oh man, like I feel so bad that you had to go through this and you never had any companionship, no friends. You lived your whole entire life pretty much being awkward. And that really doesn't stop even when people start to notice her. May is still very awkward. Like there's a scene with her and Jeremy Sisto at the laundromat, and he's kind of, trying to make conversation with her, and she's just kind of, nodding her head, not even saying words at point, like not even giving one word answers, like less than that. And you're just like, man, like this poor girl, like there's awkward, and then there's May, and I just think, the first thing that jumps out of me about this movie is Angela Bettis' performance. She was born to play this character. She was born to do this role because like we all love Sissy Spacek as Carrie. We all love these characters that are kind of, shy, timid, whatever. But Angela Bettis brings just something a little bit different to this role, where we're not only sympathetic, but at the same time we can almost feel what she's going through, because there's points in this movie where May gets rejected more than once. She's with Adam for a little while. You think it's going somewhere, and then bam, one night she shows up at his door, and he hears, she hears him say that, he's dropping her. He's not interested in dating May anymore. He thinks she's a weirdo, complete weirdo. And we're all heartbroken by that, and we can connect because anybody and everybody has been rejected at some point or another in their life. Like that's the thing about this character that I really connected with is, when we are rejected, when we feel low on ourselves, when we don't get what we're going for, when we don't get what we want. It's really a film about the horrors of that, the horrors of rejection, and the horrors of not being able to fit in. Is that I think this movie really shines bright, and Angela Bettis's performance is the reason it shines as bright as it does. Um, there's also a really fun character in this film, played by Anna Faris from the Scary Movie films. She's like this like person that works in the office with her, and she's like this really overtly lesbian chick, and like I have a blast with her performance. She's just having an absolute fucking ball as this character. I really really liked her in this movie. And there's something about like the energy she brings to it that makes it a lot of fun. Like usually it's just be like, downbeat, lesbian, okay, hot lesbian in the office, but she's fun about it. Like it's almost like she's in on the joke. Like apparently she went in and auditioned for this and was like, yo, I just want to be the crazy lesbian bitch in the office. And they were like, sure, we'll pay you to do that. So I just love what Anna Faris brought to this role. I thought she did a really, really good job in the film. And then, there are some really, really good, I think, horror elements throughout this flick. Um, as May starts to get noticed more and more, she's happy and she's talking to the doll that her mom got her, the doll Susie. And she's like, what should I do here? And what should I do there? And, we don't hear the doll say anything, but she really, that has been her only friend her entire life. And so, who knows, who knows what a doll can become for a child that has never had friends, has never really felt loved, has always felt like they did not fit in. And I think it's really powerful, man. It's a really, really powerful movie because she's talking to this doll and trying to get advice from it, and we're just like, man, this bitch is cracked. But as she starts to crack, the doll case glass that the doll is in, it starts to crack. So as these cracks form in her life, the cracks form in the doll glass. And like I thought that was so smart for Lucky McKee to tackle that. Just be like, listen, like her life is reflecting this doll case right now. Like that's her life. And as tragic as it is, it's really a smart move for a director to take. And it's a thing in this movie that I always really liked when I first saw it. I noticed that. I was like, that's the connection here, And there's one night where she's making out with Jeremy Sisto's character and she bites him on the lip and he's like, who the hell taught you how to kiss? And she says under her breath, she's like, Susie. And you're just like, oh my God, and she starts yelling at the doll case. She's like, who taught me how to kiss, huh, Susie? Amazing. And like, I think honest to God, that this performance really could have been taken over the top. Like I think in the hands of a different actress, this probably would not have worked as well because I think it would have been tackled as a very over the top portrayal of a tragic character like this. But I think that the beauty of it is she almost approaches the role like somberly. Like she's very timid, she's very shy, but she doesn't like when she goes nuts, she doesn't go crazy nuts, she doesn't go charismatically nuts, she goes nuts. It's just she's snapped, and it's very sad to watch it unfold, because it's almost like snowball effect. Like the movie starts, you feel bad, then things start going right, and then snowball effect downhill, man. And you're in that moment, you are really truly heartbroken for this character. And this character almost becomes the martyr, and I don't know if that was the intention or not, but it definitely feels like it to me. There's a point where May does finally snap and she decides, hey, there are no perfect people out there. I've tried to fit in. She has a one night stand with her lesbian, co-worker, and then the next thing she knows, she's being cheated on her by this hot legged woman named Ambrosia. Like he goes, ape shit. And then, Adam has left her and she feels that everybody she's opened up to has turned their back to her, and dealing with that rejection for the first time at her age, at her state, it's just something that she couldn't bounce back from. So she decides, listen, there are perfect parts. Adam has perfect hands. Ambrosia has perfect legs. And, Anna Faris's character, she has the perfect neck. So May decides, what my mom told me was right. If I can't make any friends, keep any friends, have a boyfriend, girlfriend, what have you, I'm going to make one myself. And May on Halloween night goes out and starts picking off all these people that have wronged her and taking the perfect parts from them that she needs to create the ultimate doll to finally please her and make her come to peace. And it's crazy, man. Like that's a really dark, morbid theme to tackle in the genre, but man, it works here so well. I love the scene where she kind of goes over to Anna Faris's house, and she almost like, it's not seducing, but she almost like teases her into thinking, oh, this is a game. Let me touch your neck, and she does, and then next thing you know, she just slits both sides of her throat. And like Anna Faris is smiling, and then she like realizes, she's like, oh my God, like holy crap, it just immediately like bam switches gears like that. And I think that's really good. And then you see the Ambrosia character in the kitchen. She's like, you're a weirdo, May. And she's like, why don't you give me a full spin around? And she's like, all right. She spins around. She's like, how was that? She's like, that was beautiful. Bam, double knife to the head and like right through the temples. And then she just kind of tilts, collapses, and the milk and blood spill on the floor and mix together. Excellent, excellent kill scene done in a movie, man. I really like that kill scene. And then, of course, Jeremy Sisto's character, he's got to go too. I thought that was fantastic how they tackled that whole thing. They really don't show much of it, but you get the idea that it was a really horrifying experience. I'm sure that I would assume that they maybe shot the death scene with Jeremy Sisto, but at the end of the day, it almost felt more impactful to show it in like quick cuts, quick edits, stuff like that. Stuff like that. That's what I really, really enjoyed about that specific kill. My boy, the hard boy's in the heezy watching the Graveyard Shocker with a badass double feature. Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate that. To be mentioned in the same sentence as Wes Craven or Horace Pinker, that warms my heart truly. So shout out to you, buddy. Thank you. And the thing that really got me about this movie, the first time I saw it, was the final scene, was the finale. As May, sews together this perfect doll for herself, and she goes and she goes, all I've ever wanted is for someone to see me. And she kind of looks at the doll and she lays next to it and she goes, wait a minute, you can't see me. She gets up, she kind of looks in the mirror and she looks at her lazy eye and she's just like, you know what, this is the thing that's caused me all these problems in my life, up to this point. I finally get it fixed and people are even worse now than they were then. And that's the true horrors of reality that she realizes and sees. And she decides, you know there's no turning back now. And she takes a pair of scissors and cuts her own eye out. And it is absolutely horrifying, man. Like when I first saw that, I jumped out of my damn skin. I was like, holy shit. And that wasn't the first time, or the last time, I should say, in this movie where I jumped out of my skin. She rips her own eye out, puts it on the doll, and lays next to it and starts screaming in the doll's ear, see me, see me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, like this is crazy. Next thing we see is the arm and hand of Jeremy Sisto that is now, been sewn to the doll, reaches over and starts brushing May's hair as we cut to black. And May has this kind of smile on her face as the film ends. Um, it's one of those moments in the history of the genre where not only did I jump, like as soon as that hand moves, I went, oh, like I jumped. But when he starts brushing her hair, I'm like, oh my God. Like I was like, wow, like what a creepy final kind of supernatural touch to this film that otherwise was telling you about the reality of horror as opposed to, supernatural element, what have you. I like that. I like that they added that little nugget on top of the end. And I thought the song that they use, that creepy, it's like a biblical song. It's like, he loves all the children. Really fucking creepy, man. There are so many really well done horrific scenes in this. Again, the scene where May is actually, she volunteers at this center for blind children, and she goes in to show her doll, and all the kids want to take the doll out of the case. She's like, no, 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 no. They end up going to tug of war over it. Bam, the glass smashes all over the ground, and all these blind kids don't know, but there's glass all over the ground, and they all get down on their hands and knees trying to get the doll, and all these blind kids just get fucking cut up and shit, man. And it's just like, you're just like, Jesus Christ, like that's dark. You wouldn't do that in a movie today, I don't think, man. And if you did, man, you would definitely be hearing the music for that, I think. And seeing that as a kid was pretty traumatic. I was like, holy shit, like, these kids didn't know any better because they were blind. That's a great horrific scene, and I think the movie as a whole, it's a genius tackling of the horrors of loneliness, the horrors of awkwardness, the horrors of not being able to fit in and not being able to be accepted, no matter how nice or good that you are. In reality, sometimes people are two-faced. People will reject you. People will backstab you. And here's this movie about a girl that says, hey, man, sometimes you may have perfect parts of you, but no one is perfect as a whole. And I think that ideology, that mentality is absolutely brilliant. And that's why I love Lucky Mckee as a filmmaker, because it seems like with all his movies, he kind of has a little bit of a morality as to what he's trying to say. But at the end of the day, it does not take away from the film being entertaining on its own two legs. It doesn't take away from this performance, which I think is one of the best in the history of the genre. I think Angela Bettis's performance of this cannot be understated. She's so damn good in this. She's so damn sympathetic. She's creepy. She's weird, but we can't help but be drawn to her character. She's almost like a martyr, really. And that's why I think May is a masterpiece. It's the combination of Lucky McKee's written message, his really really good direction, especially in a debut feature film, and Angela Bettis's performance in the lead role. I mean, I think there's a reason why people to this day will consider this the best Lucky McKee film. Um, it's probably my favorite Lucky McKee film. It's either this or the next one I'm going to talk about. It's a toss up because I love those movies so much. But May is one of those movies that got me into the genre, and May is one of those movies that I forever will herald as one of those movies that really were like my launch pad into the wonderful world known as the horror genre. So that is May. I'm going to give May the perfect score, 10 out of 10. I absolutely adore this movie. I think it's a masterpiece, and I think, you know, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I still think this will be a great horror cult classic. And you thank nobody else but Lucky McKee and the legendary Angela Bettis. Just absolutely, I would love to meet Angela Bettis someday because, man, I would just love to tell her what her performance and those two roles around that time, what they meant to me as a horror fan, and why I kind of transitioned into the horror genre and being such a big fan of it as I am. A lot of that is because of her, and a lot of that wouldn't have happened without her. So I'd love to thank her eventually one day in the future. Horror Boy, I've never seen May, but I have heard of it. Yeah, it's definitely a really good watch, Nate. I don't know, I forget how much I spent on that DVD of it, but I don't remember being too expensive. It's a really good watch. I highly recommend, buddy. I've heard of all three films, just never seen them. No worries, brother. I'll tell you a little bit about them. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spoil a lot of May, even though I did. I'll try not to spoil this next one as much, though. So after May came out, and it kind of set the world on fire, especially the independent horror scene. People were loving to love May. And actually, Mick Garris asked Lucky McKee to be a part of the first season of Masters of Horror, where he directed an episode again starring Angela Bettis and Erin Gray. And if you don't know who Erin Gray is, she's actually porn star Misty Monday. And that was like the first movie, or I guess you can call it a movie slash episode of a TV series where she did not use the pseudonym, Misty Monday. She used her real name, Erin Brown. Not Aaron. I said Aaron Gray before. Aaron Brown. It is. I'm sorry if I botched that. But yeah, the episode was called Sick Girl. Not one of my favorites of Masters of Horror, I won't lie. It's definitely one of the weaker episodes of the first season. Not the worst, but definitely like one of the ones that I don't hold as high as the others. I know a lot of people fucking love it. I know a lot of people, there's a big cult audience for Sick Girl. Aside from Angela Bettis's performance, and I actually thought Aaron Brown did a really good job in the role. Other than them, I felt like it was like creature feature bug movie, and it was fine. And I'm glad that Lucky McKee tried to, change it up after doing such a serious movie like May. Let's do a crazy bug creature feature with lesbians. I appreciate the change in pace, the change in taste, whatever. I liked that, but his next feature length movie is one that I absolutely love, and I love that he went back to a serious kind of type of horror film, and it is from 2006. This one was shelved for a couple of years, so I think it was made before then, but didn't come out till 2006. It is Lucky McKee's The Woods. I love this movie. I think this is one of the most underrated horror movies of the early 2000s. I just totally adore this flick. Actually, bought this. If you can't see right here, this is WO for horror. I got this way back in the day from a Hollywood Video that was going out of business. I remember picking this up. The Hills Have Eyes. I still have this little thing on the side for. I used to have the Dawn of the Dead Divamax DVD with that on the side of it, I believe. I bought all those in the same day for like $1 each at this Hollywood Video that was going out of business. And I can't understate how much I fucking love this movie too. My man Nate says he got her mixed with Sasha Grey. Dude, I know I did. I got my porn stars mixed up. I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm glad that was caught on camera because it was such an awful transition, and I tried to be like, no, I didn't mean Sasha, but I did, I don't know what to say. I'm very embarrassed, but at the same time, they're both kick ass, so I don't really need to be ashamed. You know what I mean? I'm glad that good brother Nate caught that out though, because that is a fucking funny. I call her Erin Gray and meant Sasha Gray, but I actually meant Erin Brown. So I don't know. I'm getting my colors and all that shit with porn stars mixed up. So I'm really sorry about that if I offended anybody. But back into the woods, we're going to try to bounce right back off that. This is a horror movie that I absolutely adore. I love everything about this movie. This arguably is my favorite Lucky Mckee film. It's this or May. It's really close. Like if I watch May, I'll tell you May, and then if I watch this, I'll go, man, it might be the woods. Like it's one of those where it's a yin yang all the time with these. I absolutely adore this film, and I feel like it's severely underrated. I believe on Rotten Tomatoes, this gets like a 30-something% from audience numbers. Actually, I think it's a fresh movie with critics, which is surprising considering I think it would be the other way around. But it seemed like the average moviegoers didn't like this film, which really blows my mind. I'm just like kind of like, huh, like why not? And if anybody has seen this that's watching this, please, and if you do, dislike like this, please tell me your thoughts on this movie. Like, I feel like there should be more reviews of this movie up. I've watched all of them on YouTube. There's not too many. There's maybe 5 or 6, if that, possibly even less, which is a damn shame. So I really wanted to talk about this one on the show. The film stars Agnes Bruckner as Heather, and she, at the beginning of the film, is being dropped off at this like all girls school by her parents, played by Alicia and Bruce Campbell, which is really cool to see Bruce Campbell make kind of an appearance in this. He's not in too much of the film, but I always like that, he kind of, if Bruce Campbell's in your film, you've already got, you've got some of the horror cult crowd, because Ash will forever draw the fans. That character is just legendary, and we love Bruce Campbell for that. He drops off Agnes Brucker at the school, and she's introduced to Patricia Clarkson's character. Sorry, I always get her mixed up with the other Laura Dern. For some reason, I think they look alike, so I always get them confused, and I always am afraid I'm going to screw up their name. Just like, Sasha Grey and Aaron Brown, or Aaron Gray and Sasha Brown. Nate's cracking up and crying, man. I appreciate you calling me out on that, because I would have been like, oh man, I hope nobody noticed. My one follower, listener, whatever, that's currently with me live, he noticed. So I'm assuming the rest of you will too. But she's introduced Patricia Clarkson's character, and she's like the head mistress of this school. And slowly but surely, Miss Bruckner decides, or not decides, but she starts to realize that not everything in this school is what it seems. And at night, she walks outside the school in the woods, and she kind of hear this like creepy singing, like eerie voice in the woods, which is actually voiced by Angela Bettis. So that's kind of how she makes her cameo in this Lucky Mckee film, which I really like. I like that Lucky Mckee always tried to get Angela Bettis involved, even if it was for, singing voice or making noises in the woods. I think that's really cool that, her presence is still a little bit felt here. And, right off the bat, you realize that stuff is going crazy and stuff like that. But the atmosphere in this movie is arguably its biggest star. I love the atmosphere in this movie. I think it's a really, really well done, tackled atmosphere. And I know a lot of people will bash this movie and say, oh, it's trying to be Suspiria. I understand that gripe. I understand that, it's a girl going to a, all girls school, and she's hearing weird things and stuff like that. And she thinks that maybe, the people running the school could be a coven of witches. I got it. I understand the similarities. I'm not blind. I have 4 eyes, baby. I'm not blind. But at the end of the day, it doesn't feel like Lucky Mckee at all is ripping off Suspiria. I think maybe there are, instances where he's paying homage, but it never feels like the movie's trying to be Suspiria. You never get scenes of Agnes Bruckner walking in a hallway where it's an all red, vibrant light. You never get a scene where, she falls into a pit of barbed wire in a blue lit room. That doesn't happen in this movie. So I don't really understand the gripe there where, they're like, oh, he tried to just rip that off and aesthetically and stuff like that. I'm just like, yo, if you're going to fault this guy for having a good atmosphere in a film, and you're going to say, oh, that's ripping off Suspiria, I think you're dead wrong. There are plenty of fucking good horror movies with good atmosphere that aren't ripping off Suspiria. So, that is what it is. And the plot, okay, yes, some derivatives, but at the end of the day, I don't see it as a ripoff. I really see it as its own thing. And I think if you can look at this as its own thing, I think this is a really enjoyable horror film. Agnes Bruckner as the lead is so fun and so beautiful and so kick-ass. I love watching her performance in this movie. She's just like one of my favorite, like lesser talked about final girls. And I'm putting Agnes Bruckner as the fucking thumbnail because not enough people talk about Agnes Bruckner's performance in this. I think she's really, really good and kick-ass and fun and beautiful. Like I said, like she checks off all the final girl things that you want. She has her best friend in this, is this character. She doesn't say too much, but she's kind of like her sidekick throughout the film. And then Vanessa, oh my god, I always forget her damn name. She's also in P2, not Vanessa, Rachel Nichols. I'm sorry, I'm bad with names today. Uh, Rachel Nichols, who's in the corner here, she was also in P2. Really, really good actress. She kind of plays the school bully, and she's making fun of Agnes Bruckner throughout this film, calling her fire crotch and shit like that. Like, it's kind of funny. She's like, "So, how are you today, fire crotch?" And Agnes Bruckner's like, "I'm fine, bitch. Do you want to get the fuck out of my face or what?" Like, I love their back and forth banter. I thought that was really fun, because it was very believable, but at the same time, it was very entertaining. Um, and I think the mood of this film is really good. Like at times, it makes you question yourself. There's a scene where Patricia Clarkson and Agnes Bruckner kind of sit down in this room, and she's like, "Tell me what's been going on, Heather." And she starts talking to her, and Agnes Bruckner kind of hallucinates that she sees all this weird shit, and Patricia Clarkson's like, "Is there something wrong, miss?" And I love that, like because you're kind of the entire time trying to figure it out yourself. You're like, "Man, what the hell's going on here?" Like this is fucking trippy. This is scary, man. And I really appreciate that, like because with May, you go for psychological horror, you go for the horrors of fitting in and all that stuff. And then with this movie, bam, it's like now we're going to be atmospheric. Now we're going to be creepy. Now we're going to use the music to our advantage. Now we're going to, make the viewer question themselves of what they would do in these situations. May is more of a movie where you can relate to, but this is more of a straight up horror movie, and that's why I really like this. I like that it is his attempt at a classic feeling horror film. And I think he knocked it out of the park personally. I know I may be alone in that, but I think this is a really, really underrated gem of a horror flick. Are there some bad things in it? Sure. There's some bad CGI. I can understand that. The ending is a little wacky. I can understand that. Like the finale, a little bit wacky, but honestly, I thought it was kind of kick ass. Like if you substituted the CGI in this movie, I think it literally would have no problems. That's probably my biggest problem with is some of the CG. But at the end of the day, it's also so sparingly used that it doesn't take me out of the film for very long, if at all. But yeah, man, the main thing I love the like some of the music in this movie, man. The music is so good. They use that Leslie Gore song. I think almost the entire soundtrack is Leslie Gore songs. But the one that everybody will, mention and notice and remember is "You Don't Own Me." Da-na, I'm not just one of your many toys. I love that. They play that a couple times throughout the film, like after Agnes Bruckner has like fought, Rachel Nichols in the woods. She kind of comes back and she's just like had a rough day, and her friend comes over with like an MP3 player, and they both put the thing in their ear and they play that song, and they kind of just like rest on each other's shoulders. I like that. That's a simple scene, but it's so damn effective, and it keeps you invested in these characters. You're like, all right, this friend, she's a good girl, and Agnes Bruckner is stressed out. She is human. We don't make her uber, feminist protagonist. We make her a human, and I really like that. I like, a character that she could be a strong female heroine lead, but everybody, has their moments where they're just like, fuck, like everyone's human is basically what I'm getting at. And I really like that they really do humanize her in that scene. It's a little simple scene, but I thought it went a hell of a long way personally. Um, one by one, all these girls in the academy, they're disappearing. Some of them are dying. Some of them are turncoating. Like you think some of them are bad, and then maybe they turn good. It takes a lot of twists and turns along the way that I actually really, really enjoyed and liked. I liked, again, I thought the characters were really well done, and I thought overall the movie was entertaining from the word go to the finish. I thought it was scary in parts. I thought it was atmospheric in parts. I thought it was really, really well acted, especially for a film that did not go to the theater. I don't get why this did not go to a fucking theater and why it was shelved for so long. If somebody knows why, Please fucking tell me why. I would love to know how somebody saw this and goes, "Oh, that has to go on the shelf." I adore this movie, and I think it's easily Lucky McKee's most underrated work. I actually watched an interview with Lucky McKee late last night. He did with Adam Green, and Adam Green like mentioned, he was like, "Oh man, such director of classics as May, The Woman, All Cheerleaders Die." Like he went on all his filmography and left this film out for some reason, and I was just like, why would you do that? Like, why would you? Like, I will fucking guarantee you that this is a better movie than All Cheerleaders Die. Like, you want to argue The Woman's better than this? I disagree, but I mean, The Woman's a great movie too, and I'll be getting to that. But this is a fucking great movie, and this is something that I would be very proud of. I believe he is proud of it. I follow him on Instagram, and he occasionally will post something about it. Like back in October, he posted some of the rejected poster art for this movie, which was a lot better than this final cover art that they did. It's all right, but it's nothing great. It really looks like direct to DVD cover art and like late 90s. It doesn't even look like mid 2000s late, direct to DVD cover art. I'm not the biggest fan of this cover art. I like there's a cover art where it's like her holding an axe and like looking behind her shoulder. I love that cover art, but I guess that would have been too cool for the studios to release that. That would be my thumbnail. So I'm cool enough. I'm cooler than you studios. Yeah, man, I really love this movie. I think this, like I said, soundtrack, acting, story, atmosphere, all of it drives home for me. I really have a good time with this. And I think it's criminally underrated, man. I think it really, truly is criminally underrated. This is one I always grab for and watch. Usually around the Halloween season, but for some reason, I don't know why. Uh, I always grab for this one in November. I may be the only person in the world for some reason that does that, but I like to watch this one around November time. I think when I first saw it, it was around Thanksgiving time, like back when I was a kid. And for whatever reason, I always, try to watch this one around November. But man, I love this movie. I think it's an awesome, awesome flick. I'm going to go with a 9 out of 10 on this one. Really, really good flick. I enjoy it to pieces, and I wish more people would check it out. That is Lucky McKee's The Woods. So after The Woods, Mr. McKee actually made a film, I believe, called Red. I did not see it, but apparently it is really, really well liked film. It's not a horror film, but his next horror effort is one that, believe it or not, I just watched a couple days ago. And initially, this was going to be a double feature episode. I was going to do May, and I was going to do The Woods. Quick done episode. Thank Lucky McKee, all that stuff. But this movie, it's really fresh in my mind. I just watched a couple days ago, and to say it scared the shit out of me would be the absolute understatement of the year. It's one of the scariest movies I've seen in a long time, and it's a movie that I'm actually really ashamed I did not check out when it was first released, because now the DVD is out of print, I believe. Like it's hard to, like, if you want to buy it, you have to buy it used for like stupid money. Like I looked on Amazon, I saw it for like 25 bucks used, and I was like, 25 bucks used. I was like, let me read the, description of, is the disc intact? Is the case intact? It was like, disc is, scratched the fuck. The case is cracked in half. I was like, $25? You're giving me a broken fucking case and scratched disc that may or may not play? Standard def? I was like, fuck you. I was like, I'm not buying that then. Fuck you then. Also one more thing before I get into The Woman. This film, I really want to get it on Blu-ray. I have to upgrade to Blu-ray. So if anybody's ever interested in the DVD of this, let me know, because I just send it your way. I am in desperate need to upgrade this one. I'd love to upgrade May too, but I'm pretty sure the only like blue release of it is like a overseas, like a Region 2, and I don't have a Region 2 player, so I'll wait till May gets that big special edition in the States, if it already hasn't. I'm not sure, but I remember when I heard May went to Blu-ray, people were saying it was like a German import, and I was like, well, I can't play that, so I'll stick with the old DVD. But yeah, so let's get into the 2011 Lucky McKee directorial effort. This is The Woman from 2011, starring oh gosh, this is one I actually, just because I recently saw it, I'm not as hip on the names. Let's just go to IMDb so I get everybody's names right, because this is not one of those movies. I've only seen it once, kind of thing. And I want to be able to get the actors and actresses' names right and stuff. I know Angela Bettis plays the mother in it, and I thought she did a fantastic job. So let's see, The Woman, and let's get this cast's name, because this is something I want to make sure I deliver on here. Yeah, and of course this computer's gonna take forever to fucking load. Eventually. Wow, this is awful. I'm sorry, guys. This is fucking taking forever to load. One IMDb page, ladies and gentlemen. You'd think I'd be uploading fucking, something a lot more fucking tough to upload. Okay. I think okay, so starring Pollyanna McIntosh as the woman, Lauren Ashley Carter as the daughter of this family, Sean Bridgers as the dad, Angela Bettis as the mom, and then who the hell plays the son? Uh, Zach Rand plays the son of the film. Basically, the woman is this really good horror flick that I just watched, and it scared the shit out of me. So I give a little bit of a plot synopsis. Basically, we follow this family. They seem a little dysfunctional. The father seems to know best. If you catch my drift, like he's one of those really dominant, mean fathers. That he treats women like shit. And one day he's out in the woods and he's hunting and he sees Pollyanna McIntosh's character bathing in this river. And, he sees her and he's kind of watching her and he decides, fuck it, I'm going to shoot her. So he shoots her and brings her back to his like underground basement cellar place. He ties her up and stuff and he's talking shit to her. And there's actually a point where she bites his finger off, but that was kind of funny. He then like the next day brings the family down and he says to them all, he's like, listen, this is crazy woman that I found in the woods, and we're gonna fucking teach her how to be civil. We're gonna teach her how to be, not as much of an animal anymore, if you will. And the entire movie goes from there, and it's just the entire movie right off the bat. It's off. It's such an off kiltering movie. It's fucking terrifying, man. I thought that was the first thing I noticed about this movie is how off that it was, and second thing is just how fucking scary it is at its core. I think this is a really scary, disturbing fucking film, because just when you think this father character cannot be more of a bastard, he one ups himself. Like he's just like, hold my beer. I'm gonna, hold my keg. Like it keeps escalating to absolute like just insanity, man. Really scary stuff in my humble opinion. Um, of course, you have Angela Bettis playing the mother character in this, and she's kind of like she's trying to stick up for this person, but at the end of the day, she can't. Like she knows that if she says anything that would go against the Sean Bridgers character, she's gonna get the shit beat out of her, and she gets smacked and punched and all this stuff in this movie. It's horrific. And that's the thing about this movie that I believe Lucky Mckee was trying to tackle is the horrors of misogyny and the horrors of people that monsters can wear three-piece suits and monsters do come in all shapes and sizes, but in this particular movie it happens to be this successful law firm worker, the Sean Bridgers character, and by day he's this successful guy and by night he's taunting this woman, raping this woman, throwing food at this woman, teaching his son to do these despicable acts, and just for the sick sadistic pleasure of getting off. And like that I think about this film is what scared me the most, is like how truly dark, vicious, and fucking mean spirited that father was, the Sean Bridgers character. He is really a fantastic actor in this. He actually went on to be in the Academy Award winning movie Room from 2015, playing a very similar character. So I'm assuming that whoever saw that movie saw this movie and was like, I need that fucking guy to play the, mean spirited, heartless bastard that, defiles and treats women like shit, because he's got it down. Like his performance in this is absolutely like what made the movie for me. He was so damn scary. He's done a lot of other stuff, but The Room was probably the most notable. And this is a movie where you almost want Angela Bettis to go full on May on his ass, but that's not the point of her character in this. She's just kind of the helpless mom who, knows if she speaks up, she's going to get it. And like, that's really sad. And it's actually really terrifying to watch as a viewer. And then the daughter character, who probably of the entire family is the most morally, correct. And, she's hiding throughout the whole movie that she's pregnant. And for a while, we think, oh, she must have slept around with some guy. And then you find out later in the film that it may have just been incestuous pregnancy. And like, that scared the shit out of me too. I was like, holy shit. Like, I didn't realize that they were going to go in that direction. And if anybody's more brutal than the father, it's the son. The son just for some reason just likes to be fucking mean and nasty to women too. And there are points where he's doing this free throw contest at school. He loses to this girl and decides, "Fuck it, I'm gonna put gum in her hairbrush." And later she's like brushing her hair and like has to rip off big chunk of her hair, man, just because this kid lost to her and he fucking couldn't take losing to a woman. And there's a scene where, he stabs the shit out of the woman that they're holding captive just for fun. And I don't know, man. Like, I know I'm throwing a lot at you guys, but I tell you how I felt the movie was to me. It was throwing so much at me as a viewer. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, like, this is fucking really sadistic and brutal and violent. And, I can see why. Apparently, when this film debuted some Sundance back in 2011, some fucking critic got up and started screaming, like, turn this off, burn this movie. That ended up being all the publicity the movie needed, as Lucky Mckee says. That guy was like, this is against women. This isn't art, all this stuff like that. And, that's the best thing you want for your film is when somebody says something like that, because then all of a sudden people will go, I want to see that, man. That means that something fucked up's in this movie. And it's not one of those movies where, it has that one defining thing about it that is fucked up. It's really just the tone and the horrors of the father, like the lead actor. I think he is so damn terrifying in this. Like, I cannot tell you enough of how scary he was and how good his performance is. He just scared the living shit out of me. This movie, and in this movie, what I like that Lucky Mckee, every single movie, he kind of does something a little bit different. May is, like I said before, is the horrors of loneliness. Then The Woods is your straight up atmospheric, witch film, classic horror movie tone. And then this is almost just like the horrors of misogyny and the horrors of men that are fucking just mentally crazy. Because this character, you could tell he was not mentally sane. You could tell he was a real son of a bitch, and like, he does really good job portraying this character and driving that point home, I gotta say. He just did a really great job. And I think what can't be lost is Pollyanna McIntosh's performance, because she doesn't like say much. Like, she doesn't have many words of English she could speak, but she sells a lot with her eyes and her facial expressions and her movements and stuff like that. And like how she looks through certain characters. There's a scene where she's looking at Angela Bettis while the father is like distracted, like putting a dress on the woman. And Angela Bettis sees that one of the hooks that has the woman tied up, it's breaking. It's slowly but surely breaking. Like, she sees that it's coming off, and Angela Bettis right then and there doesn't have to say a word, and eventually this woman will probably get free. And Angela Bettis, in fear of her husband, says, "Look, the hook is coming loose." And as he fixes it, the woman kind of looks at Angela Bettis and is like, "You are truly trapped by him. You're truly, you've become his servant, his slave, his what have you, like, you're his bitch, if you will, for lack of a better term." But I mean, that's kind of the point at the end of the day, too. Um, I thought that was a really powerful scene where later on in the film, when you're thinking, will Angela Bettis be spared? I thought she would, but, I'll let you draw that conclusion. She's not. Well, I'll just tell you at this fucking point, Angela Bettis does not make it because of that little incident. And I thought that was really smart. Like, okay, she's in such fear of him that, she could completely let this girl get away and all this nightmare would be over. But out of her sheer fear, she tells him she can't go against him, and that's horrific at times. Sometimes women do become trapped by these overly fucking angry and mean and awful fucking husband figures, whatever, in their lives. And the son, like, one night he sees his father rape her, and the next day he decides, fuck it, I'm going to do the same thing. And like, it's just scary how all of them kind of base their actions and what they do on what the father is going to think or do to them as a repercussion. genius storytelling, man. That's true horror. This is one of those movies where I know it's, some will say it's pro feminism, some will say it's against women. I think at its core, and why I loved this movie so much, is it is a horror movie that does its job right. It scares you, it makes you feel very uncomfortable, very disturbing feel. It's unsettling. It is one of the most unsettling horror movies I've ever seen in my life because, when it starts, I'm just kind of like, all right, everyday modern American family, what's going to happen from here. And really, you see how sick, sadistic, brutal, and crazy uh, a family like that can get. And I don't know, man. I thought this movie took a lot of twists and turns that I didn't necessarily see coming. It had really, really great acting. Uh, again, from Pollyanna McIntosh, Angela Bettis. I know I've read a lot of that Angela Bettis that people didn't like her performance. I thought her performance was spot on. That was the character. She had to play this weaker, being that was in terror. Like Angela Bettis throughout the whole movie is afraid of this guy. And I thought that was really smart. Even when she does try to speak up, she's like, maybe I shouldn't. And like that speaks volumes, man, because I'm sure there are a lot of women out there that feel like that. And this is just a movie about it at its core. It's acknowledging that stuff like that exists, the horrors of those things exist. And I think that's what goes over people's heads. People are just like, no, this is against women, this is wrong. And I'm just like, no, like there are some sick son of a bitches that will do this shit and women will feel that way. Feel compelled to feel that way. And I thought, what a brave move to try to tackle a theme like that. It's of course based on the Jack Ketchum novel. And he actually helped write the screenplay along with Mr. Lucky Mckee. And I thought they did a really good job of driving that point home. I think it's a really, at its core, like I said, one of the most scary movies I've seen in a long time, just because of its disturbing, unsettling, graphic nature, and overall mood and tone. It's a fucking mean spirited movie. And like, I guess I just wasn't expecting it. I wasn't ready for it. I thought maybe, with Lucky McKee, because in May there's some humor. Like there's the scene where they're cutting themselves and laughing about it, and there's the scene where my baby does the hanky panky, and they're all like they're watching the two couple on TV in black and white, like eating each other to that song. Like there's some funny moments in May. But I thought we would get some more humor in this. There's really not one laugh in this entire movie. It's just fucking morbid and fucked up from the word go to the finale. And I thought that was a really, good choice for Lucky McKee to take in his career. Because with the next film, with All Cheerleaders Die, he went kind of back to being fun and comedic and stuff like that. I will say, of the three, The Woman is probably my least favorite of these three. But I think it's a movie that, of the three of them, for weirdly enough, it's probably struck the biggest chord with me, just because of the subject matter and the nature that it tackles. Man, I think it's absolutely horrifying, and I think it's something that really does exist. And I know people sometimes it's hard for them to hear the truth, but I think that was the point of the movie, and that's what Lucky McKee kind of drove home, is that there are some monsters in this world that wear three-piece suits, and that's just a scary thing to kind of realize at the end of the day. And I appreciated it. I thought it was a really, really well done horror movie. And one day I'd like to buy it on DVD, Blu-ray, what have you. The price has got to be right and can't be used and cracked in half DVD case or scratched disc or whatnot. Now it's never any good. But yeah, man, that is The Woman. Out of 10, I'm probably gonna go 8.5 out of 10. I had a hard time rating it the other night when I watched it just because of how badly it scared me. I was just like, fuck, man, like this is a fucking terrifying movie. But I thought that's really why it worked overall as a whole. I thought it was a really, really good film. So yeah, so we can go down the line. We get May, 10 out of 10. The Woods, 9 out of 10. And, I think this is a masterpiece. I wish people would watch this. If there's one I could recommend the most of the three, it's probably this one, even though I like May probably a little bit slightly more. I think this one's way more underrated, and so few people have seen this. So if there's one of these you're going to track it down to watch, make it The Woods. I think The Woods deserves its just desserts. Yeah, we love May, and then The Woman. If you're in for if you really want to watch a disturbing, fucked up psychological horror film, look no further than The Woman. I thought that was an absolute masterpiece. It's actually here on YouTube for free, and I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you for whoever uploaded it, because I was at work working a late night shift, and I was like, yeah, throw a fucking movie on, why not? And I was just like, holy shit, like halfway through I turned it off and was like, I'll watch the rest at home. Like this is too messed up to kind of continue here. Um, yeah, so that's going to be all for the show today. I really appreciate Lucky McKee's work, and I really enjoyed talking about Lucky McKee's, filmography, if you will. I could do a review of All Cheerleaders Die down the road. That was his next film after this, and then he just came out with one middle of last year, I think called Kindred Spirits or something like that, that I haven't seen. So maybe on another episode when I see Kindred Spirits, I'll talk about All Cheerleaders Die in that one. But man, I just like the guy's approach to the genre. I like the guy's style. I think he's actually, like, in interviews, he's one of the most humble guys ever. He's not really like Eli Roth or Adam Green, where it comes off as they're really kind of like a little bit egotistical at times, whereas Lucky McKee is just the chillest, down to earth motherfucker. Like, he's just like, like, I'm just telling you how it is, and what I wanted and what inspired me and stuff like that. And that's why I really love Lucky McKee. I think he's a really humble guy, and I think he really understands the beauty of the genre, because with each film that I've talked about today, he in one way or another changed up the formula, made it fresh, and made it something different, while getting great performances out of his lead actors and actresses. I mean, Sean Bridges in The Woman, Angela Bettis in May, and of course Agnes Bruckner in The Woods. I mean, all three of those lead performances, I think, are just fantastic. Pollyanna McIntosh in The Woman too. Like, just all of these performances just really kind of blew me away. I thought they were fantastic. So really enjoyed all three of these films. Thank you for joining me. My good brother Nate says, wonderful show, man. Great time. I'll have to check out these films. Thank you, man. I hope you do check out these films. If you have Amazon Prime, I know The Woods is on there, so I can recommend that. And The Woman, of course, is free on YouTube. I could always send you the link. But that's going to be all for the show today. Thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing next week. I'm kind of playing it by the old ear. I've been kind of busy lately. But hopefully I'll be having a show next week, stuff like that. And can keep trucking along on this fantastic horror journey known as Grande's Graveyard. So thank you all for joining me. Too sweet. Peace. And I'll catch you next time.